We're going to continue to talk about Pythagorean theorem. This is the last piece on the coordinate plane. So all of our practice problems so far have been straight out a triangle or a word problem. But when we have a coordinate plane, we are going to use the vertical and horizontal distances between the 2 points as the lengths of the legs, and the length of the diagonal is going to be the hypotenuse. So this is not overly difficult. We're going to graph these coordinates for these 3 triangles, and we're going to see what happens. So for triangle, we'll call this ABC. We're going to be at -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, +1, we're going to call that A, and B is at -1, +4. So what we can do, we are going to look for this diagonal, which will be C, but if we connected at the right angle, we can see we do have a triangle, and we can count the spaces. So this is 1, 2, 3 on this leg, and 1, 2, 3 on this leg. And then we can take that information and find this hypotenuse. So if we say that, in fact, we can do the work over here in the margin. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and we know A is 3 squared and B is 3 squared. Then we can go through and do our Pythagorean theorem and say 9 plus 9 is C squared. So we have 18 equals C squared. Am I asking for C or C squared for this side length? I'm asking C squared. So this would be our area. So if we drew our squares on the side, that would be our area. But if I want just C, then I need to take the square root. Make sure you use your calculator for that. And when we take the square root of 18, we know it's between 4 and 5, but let's round to the nearest tenth. The square root of 18, we can call this 4.2. Okay? So we could come over here to our triangle and say C equals, or we can use a squiggle equals for approximately 4.2. So it's not really any difference on the coordinate plane, except for you have to count to find those side lengths. So let's look at GH. G is at 6, 10. So it's way up here. And H is at -3, -1. So we can go ahead. We cannot count that diagonal, but what we can do is we can create our triangle. And we can count. We can say, okay, well, we know that this is 10, so +1. This is 11 on this side. And this is going to be 6 to here is 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? So the only difference is when it's on a coordinate grid, we have to count to find the measure of those side lengths like we did at the very, very beginning with our book that had the grids. Do you remember that? So then we can go ahead and we can say A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So now A is 9 and B is 11. 81 plus 121 is, what is that? 2. This is 2. This is 10. Carry the 1, so 202. Take that square root. And you do get to use your calculator on the test Monday. 14.2 is our side length. Okay, so remember, if it's talking about area, it's before we take the square root. If it wants just the side length, we're going to take the square root. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to try this last one, RS. Take a moment, and then we'll see how you do. So you can see here that I graphed 5, -3, 0, -5. I drew my triangle. This is a side length of 2. This is a side length of 5. Went through my whole process. Square root of 29. C is approximately 5.4. It was 5.38, so if you put 5.3, that's fine as well. Our next thing today is going to be to work through our test review. If you did not finish the room, the other day in class after you do the test review. You can work on that or vice versa. But the room is going to be due today, so if you feel like you need to do that before the test review, by all means do that. All right? You can get the test review signed for 5 bonus points. Yes, good point.